Deep in the night, a man stood at the door of an inn. He had been running for 3 days. There was an army behind him. He knocked. He said, "I need a room." The innkeeper shook his head. "I'm sorry. The law states that anyone without identification can be admitted. Those are the rules." The man stood in the cold wind. He said nothing, because that law, he had written it himself. He closed his eyes and exhaled quietly. Then he knew he was finished. This man had taken a broke, humiliated country that no one respected, and in 10 years turned it into the most feared killing machine on the continent. He designed a system with no exceptions, and then that system locked him out too. Think Robespierre, but he built the revolution instead of riding it. And in the end, the revolution took his head. His name was Shang Yang. This is his story. The 4th century BC, 7 states fighting for control of a continent. The strongest was Wei. Its heavy infantry were the best equipped soldiers in the world. Discipline, devastating. She had the sea, salt, iron, money, the financial center of its age. Chu had land, more land than anyone else, deep roads, deep pockets. And then, in the far western corner of the map, there was one more state. No money, no dignity. When the other states held international summits, they didn't send it an invitation. Having it at the table, the history suggests, would have been embarrassing. The regional tax rates, the lords looked down on Qin. No shame was greater. In plain language, to the civilized world, Qin was a barbarian at the gate. Its most fertile land had already been seized by Wei's armies. What was left? A cramped corner in the northwest. Peasants too poor to eat properly. Nobles stabbing each other over scraps of power. Into this wreckage, a young ruler came to the throne. His name was Duke Zhao of Qin. Desperate, he issued a proclamation. In today's language, it would read, "I don't care who you are. If you can make Qin strong, I will share this country with you." A minor aide in Wei saw the proclamation. His name was Wei Yang. He was descended from royalty, but his home state of Wei had long since hollowed out, and noble blood bought him nothing. He ran errands for the chancellor. No one knew his name, but he carried one thing with him, a scroll, 10 years of his own work on the laws, a complete blueprint for how to turn a country into a war machine. No one knew what was in it. He did. Before he left Wei, the chancellor, dying, had grabbed the duke's hand and said, "Wei Yang is a genius. If you won't use him, kill him. Do not let him serve another state." The Duke of Wei smiled, walked out of the room, and told his attendants, "The old man has lost his mind. He wants me to hand the country to a nobody." That offhand decision was the first step in Wei's long decline. Wei Yang didn't know any of this yet. He just turned west and didn't look back. Wei Yang's audience with Duke Zhao became one of the strangest job interviews in history. First meeting, he talked about the ancient sage kings, the philosophy of legendary rulers. Duke Zhao's eyes glazed over. Afterward, he went back and screamed at the man who'd recommended Wei Yang. "You brought me a bookworm." Second meeting, Wei Yang tried benevolence, ritual, virtue. The Duke sat through it, then shook his head. "We're in the middle of a war era. Everyone is fighting with blades, and you're talking to me about virtue." Third meeting, dominance. How to become the strongest state in the region. The Duke nodded, barely passive, but Wei Yang knew he hadn't played his real hand yet. Fourth meeting, he put everything on the table. A complete plan, not for a better state, for a war machine, a system that would convert every person, every field, every village into a single instrument of conquest. The history's record. Duke Xiao leaned forward without realizing it. His knees almost touched Wei Yang's knees. They talked from midday until deep into the night. Then again, the next day, and the next. The Duke asked, "How long before we see results?" Wei Yang said, 10 years. Qin will dominate. And just like that, Duke Xiao had absolute control of his country to this stranger from the West. The transformation began. The greatest enemy of reform has never been the system. It's always been trust. The people didn't believe the government meant what it said. So Wei Yang did something that is still talked about today. In the capital, he had a 3-meter wooden pole erected at the south gate. A notice was posted beside it. Move this pole to the north gate. Receive 10 gold. Nobody moved. He raised the reward. 50 gold. To put that in terms a Qin peasant would understand. Roughly 34 years of a commoner's grain supply. Finally, one man, bold enough or desperate enough, carried the pole to the north gate. Wei Yang paid him on the spot. No hesitation. Qin understood. This man says what he means. The reforms began in 4. 2 policies. They rewrote the country's DNA. The first, military merit ranks. Your birth, your family name, your ancestors' achievements. Cancel. All of it. From this point forward, there was one path to advancement. Go to the battlefield. Take enemy heads. Bring them back. One head, one rank. Land, a house, servants. It didn't matter if you started as a beggar. Enough heads, and you could become a senior official. And in the other direction, didn't matter if you were royal. No military merit, no privileges. None. What did this do to Qin soldiers? The history's record. When Qin troops heard there was going to be a battle, they slapped their thighs with excitement. The people saw war the way a starving wolf sees meat. On the battlefield, Qin soldiers sometimes stripped off their armor and charged bare-chested. Why? The armor slowed them down. It got in the way of taking heads. The soldiers of the other 6 states looked at these red-eyed men and sometimes broke before the fighting even started. They gave Qin a name, said with fear, the Tiger Wolf State. The second policy, collective punishment. Every 5 households in the country were bound together as one unit. If one household broke the law, and the other 4 failed to report it, all 5 were executed by waist severing. Reported. And your reward was equal to killing an enemy on the battlefield. The result, the entire country became a surveillance network. Parents watched their children. Wives watched their husbands. Neighbors watched neighbors. Everyone, inside fear, followed every instruction from the government. You think this was just words on paper. You think Wei Yang was only writing notes. He was more thorough than you can imagine. Not long after the reforms began, Crown Prince broke the law. This was a fatal test. Let the prince go, and the new laws were finished before they started. Punish the prince, and you've made an enemy of the future ruler. Wei Yang said, when a law fails to take hold, it means those above have not led by example. The prince must be held accountable. But the crown prince was heir to the throne. It wasn't convenient to punish him directly. So Wei Yang had the prince's tutor brought before him and had the man's face tattooed. A public humiliation, visible to everyone. A second tutor, Gong Sun Jian, broke the law again 4 years later. Wei Yang had his nose cut off. oath of Qin was shaken. If the tutors of royalty ended up like this, who would dare test these laws? From that point, the people of Qin followed every order. Without exception, 10 years later, the machine began to show its power. Qin defeated Han. For the first time, the states of the Central Plains had to take this Western barbarian seriously. Then Wei Yang turned his attention to the country he knew best. Wei had just been devastated in a major battle against Qi. Weakened, exposed, Wei Yang sent his armies east. Wei's commander in the field was a man named Prince Ang. Prince Ang had once been Wei Yang's close friend, back when Wei Yang was still a nobody running errands in Wei. The two armies faced each other across the field. Wei Yang sent a letter. "We were friends once. I can't bring myself to fight you to the death. Let's meet, have a drink, talk about peace. Then we both go home." Prince Ang read the letter. He was moved. He came to the meeting on time. The wine was poured, and then, halfway through the cup, soldiers burst from every direction. Prince Ang was seized on the spot. Without their commander, the Wei army collapsed. Wei was forced to surrender territory to make peace. The Duke of Wei, who had once left off his chancellor's warning, beat his chest. "I will never forgive myself for not listening to Gongshu Guo." That year, Qin killed tens of thousands. Not a single person in Qin thought anything was wrong. This was the wall Wei Yang had built. For his victory, he was granted the territory of Shang. He became Lord Shang, Shang Yang. He had reached the highest point of his life. And at the moment, at the peak, he summoned a man named Zhao Liang and asked him a question. "I have transformed all of Qin. In all of history, who do you think has achieved what I have achieved?" Zhao Liang was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Bailisi was a great chancellor of the ancient world. When he died, the whole country wept. You need dozens of armed guards to leave your front door. You don't dare step outside without them. Have you ever thought about what that difference means?" Zhao Liang's final words: "The day of your destruction will come as quickly as lifting a foot." Shang Yang didn't listen. What he didn't know, he had 5 months left. 5 months later, Duke Xiao died. The crown prince, whose tutor had been tattooed, whose other tutor had lost his nose, took the throne. He had been waiting for over 20 years. The old nobility moved in like wolves. Gong Sun-jian and the others filed their report immediately. Shang Yang is plotting rebellion. Shang Yang knew what was coming. He fled in the night. 3 days and 3 nights of running. Clothes torn, covered in dust. Deep into the night, he knocked on the door of an inn. The innkeeper looked at him and shook his head. "I'm sorry. Lord Shang's law states that inns may not take in guests without identification papers. Those who do are to be executed. May I see your papers?" Shang Yang stood in the cold wind. He looked up at the night sky and exhaled quietly. "So this is how far the harm of my own law has reached." He tried to flee to Wei. The border commander turned him away. "You deceived Prince Ang. You are not welcome in Wei." With nowhere to go, Shang Yang returned to his own territory and raised a resistance. The new king's armies crushed it. Shang Yang was killed in battle. The king ordered his body torn apart by 5 horses, displayed in public. His entire family was executed. The history's record. Not a single commoner wept for him. But that is not the most disturbing part of this story. The new ruler killed Shang Yang and kept every single one of his laws. Not one was repealed, because the new king understood clearly. Shang Yang was hateful, but the system he had left behind was the only reason Qin could rule the world. 100 years later, the machine was still running. It swept through 6 states. It unified China. The man who held that sword was named Yin. He unified China. He became Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor. For 2,000 years, every Chinese dynasty called Shang Yang a villain and used his tools to govern, suppress commerce, elevate farming, collect surveillance, trade obedience for privilege, make the people willing to die for the state. The logic never disappeared. It just changed its name, changed its shape. That contradiction has never ended. Today, when you see a tech company use KPIs to measure every output of every employee, when you see a platform record every click, every pause, every behavior of every user into data, when you see a system that asks people to monitor each other, report each other, you are looking at the machine he built 2,300 years ago. It never stopped. It just changed its name. Chinese history has many more men like him. The things they built are still running. You just don't know who built them. Next time you encounter a system with no exceptions, ask yourself, did the man who designed it ever count whether he was one?